Ranking season is upon us again, and today I wanted to talk about some issues that people are having with the ranking system, mostly the fact that there's Japanese bias and there's a bunch of players that people don't know on the rankings, and I want to talk about that because I feel like it is a misnomer, and granted, I don't really care enough about the ranking algorithm at this point because I'm not ranked since I didn't go to enough, and the things I did go to, I kind of did meh, so not really worried about my placement on these because I kind of was aware of that. I think I was ranked like 271st or something in the algorithm, so it's fine. But I did just count, and of the 30 players so far released, because I'm recording this in the morning before the 60s come out, there was 14 of the 30 people be Japanese players, and a couple of people that, you know, a lot of US players aren't aware of, like Aiku, even though I've heard of him recently, and then people are just like wondering what's going on and why this is happening, and I want to talk about it because I think I made a video similar to this before, but the thing is, Japan is just the strongest region, right? They have so many amazing players. There are constantly like players from other regions that are strong, still getting upset by relatively unknown players. I mean, Gluto lost to a Steve May I have literally never heard of before. Last week he got run backed on by Doramigi. There are just plenty of amazing players that make the depth of Japan's talent incredibly stacked, right? I mean, I know Apollo Kage's there currently, and he's losing locals like round 1, round 2, and again, no shots at Apollo Kage, that's not the point, no shots at Gluto, not the point, but there's just an incredible depth of players in Japan, which makes it really, really difficult for, you know, ranking purposes for them not to be everywhere, right? Because you have to consider the fact that, one, because of the fact that there are so many ranked Japanese players, and the fact that it's very easy for people to travel to other regions in Japan because of their amazing public transport, there are constantly majors there, right? There are constantly S+ tiers, S tiers, A tiers, so there's constantly a lot of points funneling into this ranking system, and of course there are a lot of Japanese players that do well, right? You of course have like the top of the top with like Akola, Miya, Ken, Shutone, Yoshidora, you know, all those players, Yaoda, what's his name? Recently you had Dadakun do well, even though I don't know if he's going to be on this list, probably somewhere, but there's constantly players like that, right? Whereas I feel like in North America, we have our clusters of a lot of tournaments, right? Like there's sometimes like back-to-back weeks with big tournaments, and players will often go to both of them, but it's a little bit different and honestly more exhausting to like fly to somewhere in America, have huge time zone differences, play the weekend, come back, go to another tournament the next week, right? Like that's a lot. You know, it's one of the reasons I understand why Mars is going to King Kong in France, but not Genesis the week after, because that's exhausting to go on those types of travels. And in order to go to two majors like that in Japan, you need to take a train for like 2 or 3 hours, especially if you just kind of live in one of the two major regions of Japan, being like the Tokyo and Kansai, or I forget what the city is, Osaka. I think that's like a 3-hour train ride. So yeah, it's about a 3.5-hour train ride, which is going to be a lot different even than a 3.5-hour flight, because you don't have to go to the airport and wait in the airport like 2 hours early. And it's just a whole different situation, right? And just then the transit from whatever major train station to the specific train station that they're going, right? Obviously, huge factor because it is just a lot less exhausting to travel when you are in Japan, which again, is not like me complaining it's unfair. It's an advantage of theirs, which is really nice, right? More places should have public transit like that. But at the same time, the players in Japan are simply just better. There are more hidden bosses. There's more consistency with a lot of players. And again, people are like, oh, well, sometimes the top players in Japan do really poorly. But again, that's not because Japan isn't consistent. It just means that there's a ton of amazing players in Japan that are just beating the other players. Like the talent pool in Japan is ridiculous. When you think of the best of blank character, they're probably in Japan, right? I would say more than half of the cast has the best player in the world in Japan. Probably more than that, honestly. Like I want to actually go through it. For Mario, we have Kurama. For Donkey Kong, it could be Hikaru, but I think he quit, so I'm going to give it to Chunky Kong. For Link, I don't know if there are any Links anymore. I know there is a Link in Japan, but I don't know if he'd be the best. I'm going to say he is, just for the sake of it. For Samus, Yaoda and Siski are both pretty close. Yoshi, we have Yoshidora. Kirby, we have Gilhu. Fox, we have Light. Pikachu, we have Shiny Mark. Luigi, we have Dadukun or Luigi. Ness, I think that Gact is the best Ness. We have Jogibu for Captain Falcon. Puff, we have Base Mage. Peach, we have Mutace. Bowser, we have Hedo. Ice Climbers, we have Big D. Sheik, we have probably I'm is still the best Sheik, even though WebJP has been doing better. Zelda, I don't remember the Zelda's name from Japan, but they are very good. For Dr. Mario, we have, it's definitely a Japanese doc. What is their name? I can't remember at the moment. For Pichu, we have probably Naitoru is the best one. For Falco, we have Masa, who's doing really well, and there's like 3 really good Falcos. I know there is also Tilde, but I would say it's pretty close. For Marth, we have Riziasu. For Lucina, we have Proto Banham, who are the best ones. For Young Link, I don't know who the best Young Link would be. I know Suinoko does pretty well, but I would probably give it to Super Semi at this point. For Ganon, we have Major, or also there's the one Japanese Ganon that I forget the tag of at the moment, who's like beat Min-Mins before, which is crazy. I don't know any Mewtwo players. Period. For Roy, we have Cola, but also we have Alice. For Game & Watch, we have Mia. For Meta Knight, we have Abadongo. For Pit, we have Zachary. For Zero Suit, we have Mars. For Wario, we have Gluto. For Snake, probably at this point, the number 1 Snake is Dio. Then we have Tora, I think is her name, for Ike. I don't remember her tag exactly. For Pokemon Trainer, we have Atorie. For Diddy Kong, we have Tweak. For Lucas, I don't know. Nighthawks, I guess. Sonics, we have Sonics. I don't know any good DDD players. Probably, honestly, I think the best DDD is Hispanic at the Disco from South Florida. I don't know. Olimar, Shootone and Dabuzz are pretty close, but I'd probably give it to Shootone. Lucario, we have Armadillo, but also there's Gachipun, I forget his tag. There's a lot of tags. There's a really good Japanese Lucario, which honestly, I think like him and Armadillo are close. So like a lot of these are debatable, I guess. For Rob, we have Zomba. For Toon Link, we have Sigma or level 1. For Wolf, we have like my head thinks Jackal, but also there is Atorie's Wolf, and we also have what's his name? Masha, I think, is the wolf player. For Villager, we have Kept, who's definitely there. For Mega Man, we have like Peebnut or Kamame, but I don't think Kamame plays the character. There's also like Repo, but I think Peebnut is better. For Weave It, we have, in my opinion, Xavier. We have Dabuzz. We have Peanut. For Greninja, I'm just gonna, I mean, I know Tarek's really good, but probably the best one's still in Japan, just they don't play enough. But I would give it to Tarek. For Palu, there's an argument to make for Jagaimo. Then we have Tease Pac-Man. We have, I don't even know the Robin player's name, but they've been doing super crazy recently. For Shulk, we have Kome. For Bowser Jr., I'm just gonna give it to like Zap or Ketchup or, what's his name, Yoda Cage, someone like that. For Duck Hunt, I don't know, like, I know there are a couple of Japanese Duck Hunts, but it's probably like Embo Z or something. For Ryu, we have clearly Ashimo. For Ken, we have, it's either Jazo, but it also could be, I know there's a good Ken in Japan. I forget what his tag is though. I feel bad, but I'm probably, it's the person in Japan. For Cloud, we have Spargo. For Korin, we have Shattuck, so we win those. For Bayonetta, it's arguably Tama P. For Inkling, we have both Shidayuki and Showers, which are both amazing and definitely the best one. For Ridley, we have Smub, because Smub's the GOAT. Belmont's probably Dom. K-Rule, I don't know. There are K-Rule players. Isabel, again, Kept. Then we have Skyjay. For Piranha Plant, we have Brood and Lucky, which again is debatable. Joker, we have Leo. Hero, Aka is amazing. So is Beast Mode Paul. Banjo, we have Toriguri. Terry, definitely Riddles. Byleth, definitely Leo, even though Riziasus is also very good. Min, we have either Doramigi or Proto Banham or Omoatsu, definitely the 3 best ones. Akola for Steve. Sephiroth, I would probably say it's Tweaks, but it also could be Ken's. Ken Sephiroth is also very good. For Aegis, in my opinion, it's Shootone. For Kazuya, it's Riddles. For Sora, it's definitely Kamame. For me, Brawler, it's Kid from France. For me, Gunner, it's Capitancito from the Dominican Republic. And for me, Sword Fighter, it's probably Shishio, who's the one that like showed me the Mii Sword Fighters, not that bad. And I didn't keep track of those, but I'm sure in editing I will keep track of all of those. And so there's a lot of players that are just good in Japan, and there's always like a Japanese player right under whoever the best one is, even if the number 1 is in Japan. So again, the depth of the Japanese players is simply fantastic. They have an innumerable amount of amazing players from a bunch of different characters, and of course they're able to constantly play at majors because there are a lot of Japanese majors. And I've seen people complain about like the point multiplier, which I would have agreed a couple of seasons ago, but they adjusted it so that the main regions in Japan don't have that, and the regions of Japan that aren't like Tokyo or Kansai regions don't have those, and that's mostly where the majors are happening, like Umebura and Sumabato and Kowloon, I'm pretty sure. So it's not really getting like multipliers like that. There's just a strong amount of Japanese players. Another complaint I've seen is that, oh well, like Japanese players get to be ranked without traveling to other regions, but that's literally exactly what happened all the time for the United States. The amount of US players that traveled to Europe, or even like Mexico or Canada, or like obviously didn't travel to Japan, that were ranked number 5, number 7. Oh, it's like so many throughout the history of forever, throughout the history of all of Smash. Again, Smash Ultimate for the past like year and a half is the only time where Japan has kind of run the meta, with like the number 1 player being Akola, Mia being up there. Of course, like they've always had like high contending players like Ken and Shutone, but I think their highest peak in Smash 4 was like top 7. 8. Abadongo was pretty high at some point as well. So people are complaining that now the Japanese players get to not travel and kind of have a bunch of majors in their backyard. When granted, I know the US is a lot bigger, so it's a little different, but at the same time, that's kind of just how it happens, right? Like the region that has the most strong players gets to stay in their region and people have to travel to there. That's always how it's happened. That's how people have always talked about the US in terms of their players. Like, oh, well, like, yeah, you have to come here to fight all of our strong players because why would we go over there? It's like, okay, well, now the tables have turned. Japan is the strongest region in the world. They are able to, play at their majors, and players like Aiku are able to do well at tournaments and, not leave Japan. And even if people haven't heard of that person, that doesn't mean they're not good. There are plenty of hidden bosses literally everywhere throughout the world. There's hidden bosses in the US like Omega and Tavares and a bunch of other players. Monty, there are so many good players in the US that like aren't super known by players outside of the major regions. And then there are of course going to be players in Japan that people aren't aware of, especially if you're only watching like Japanese top 8s. You're not going to know who a lot of the other good Japanese players are that are upsetting the top players, and then those players are getting upset or just beat out by like, Mia and Akola, basically. That happens all the time, literally all the time, and it happens in US tournaments too, like Frog beating DeBuzz at Double Down last year, or 2 years ago, whenever that tournament was. So yeah, it's kind of just how it works. And if you have problems specifically with the algorithm, sure, I guess, but I don't know enough about the algorithm to either agree or disagree with those comments. So yeah, I hope that all makes sense. There are just amazing players. Japan is by far the strongest region in the world currently, and I don't really think there's any arguing that, especially considering some of the best Japanese players like aren't super active, like Zachary. Yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Let me know down in the comments below. I would appreciate it if you agree or disagree. As always, social media and partner stuff is down below, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.